the small family that I did have, we were always very poor, and we didn't have a whole lot.
It's gonna be crazier and bigger than your wildest dreams. Like
knowing what you know now,
right? Knowing what I know now, it's
right.
like I would tell my younger self, you have no idea what's in front of you, but just keep doing it.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm Nate. I play guitar and I like tacos.
And I am Zach. I am the singer, and I also happen to like tacos.
And I'm David, and I play keys, and they say that when you play keys, you make good tacos.
They do say that.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
You guys ever watch Hot Rod?
No.
I feel like we just had a Hot Rod moment. Like there's one scene where it's like, hey, we're going to go around the circle and everyone introduce himself. He's like, hi guys, I'm Rod, and I like to party. And the next guy, I forget his name, he goes, hi, I'm whatever my name is, and I like to party. And he's like, you can't say you like to party. I just like to party.
Pretty good. We did, but we all agreed.
But I think everyone's allowed to say they like tacos. I grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. My childhood was basically music and playing music. I was very much into the arts. I loved art history. That was like one of my favorite subjects in school. I loved music, obviously, and I loved writing. I'm a huge writing nerd. Like, I think if the music thing hadn't worked out, I probably would have like been a barista because you can't do much with an English degree.
Oh wow! Got it.
Where do you think you got your like creative side from? Are your parents creative?
No, my parents like they didn't play anything at all. I developed my love for it, I guess, just by going to shows. I went to my first show when I was 12. I went to see a band Under, and I just immediately fell in love with the idea of live music and performance.
I was born in a small town called Ridgewood, New Jersey. My childhood was very interesting. It was a bit rough. I moved around a whole lot. I lived in different countries and different places, and I ended up back very close to that small town in another small town, eventually in New Jersey, where I spent the rest of my teenage years growing up in a town called Glen Rock, which is where Dave and I met. And I was always sort of into music, and I liked playing instruments, and my mother played a lot of instruments. My father played instruments, so music was always something I liked. I didn't expect to be doing this or anything like this, but I grew up somewhat in an autistic household, like an autistic household.
Were they always supportive of you doing like a career in music and doing it full time?
I think that my support system was never necessarily career oriented. I think that my support system was, the small family that I did have. We were always very poor, and we didn't have a whole lot. And I think the support system wasn't to say that I had to do something or I couldn't do something. I think it was just a general concern to make sure that whatever I ended up doing, it would take care of me better than maybe than we were doing at the time, so that we could better our lives. But when I did decide to pursue a career in music and in the arts, against the other careers that I had lined up, I think everyone always supported me in their own way. Obviously, people have their doubts, right? And you hear that quite a bit. But no one ever withdrew support from what I wanted to do, which was always nice.
What kind of like careers were your parents or like your family in?
My mother was sort of a jack of all trades. She did a lot of things, but what she ended up settling down as was an EMT, so like an emergency worker, and she was always very, very sick herself. She has an interesting genetic disorder that was very rare, but and eventually it removed her from the workplace, but until then she was very active in the emergency field, and that's what she did. She worked in hospitals and on streets and in ambulances and things like that. And my father was in the military when he was younger, and then he was a policeman, he was a fireman, but most of his life he worked as a pipe fitter. So he was a construction worker.
I was born in Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Were you guys born in the same hospital?
Yes.
In the same hospital.
We were born in the same hospital.
Roughly a year apart.
Yep.
I'm a child of immigrants. My parents came here from the Philippines when I was in the womb. And then, I don't know. I had a pretty interesting upbringing because of that. Like, grew up in the suburbs of Glen Rock, pretty predominantly white neighborhood. I was definitely the outcast. My parents pushed me to do like classical music when I was young. Very stereotypical Asian upbringing. At some point I grew to love it.
What brought your parents to the States?
They came here on, they were consultants. They're both computer programmers. And I also grew up like around technology. Like I learned how to code HTML when I was in first grade because that's when my mother was learning how to code HTML. And so, I don't know, I've just always been like kind of a nerd.
Did they push you academically?
They did, and I was accelerated in math and science, and I always found math to be fascinating, but I was never really challenged, so I never did well in school, because I was kind of like, oh, whatever, like, school is school, and why are we doing this? Like, I kind of found it pointless to try hard, but I was definitely interested. But when you get into, like, calculus, like, why am I doing this? Like, there's no point, I guess because I didn't see like a real world application for it, I didn't pay attention.
What is supportive of your music career?
My father grew up in a household where my grandfather told him like, we already have an engineer, so you're gonna go and be an accountant. And so my dad was always very pro, like, go and learn and do, like, be the best at what you love to do. Because if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And so in that sense, I definitely had a lot of support. And obviously my mom just wants the best for me. So she is always like, are you saving? Do you have insurance? Stuff like that. But about, was it 2 months ago? Mm-hmm. We played here 2 months ago. It was a support, we were in the support slot. And they were sitting on the balcony, and it was a very, very good show for us, and I think that's when they caught it. Like, that's when they finally understood, like, oh, this is happening. And so, like, my conversations with my parents have been really different. Like, my mother is now like, how are the shows? How are the audiences? Like, are people receiving it well? Like, I think it's cool because we're finally engaging in discussion about what I do on like a very, like on a deeper level than just like what is happening,
Nate went to Berkeley, Dave went to Emerson, and I sort of like by proxy went to Emerson, right? Like I hung out at Emerson so much and became so cool with everybody at Emerson that like I like did tests for my homies sometimes, and like papers and stuff, you know what I mean, and like got good grades, and like I definitely like did workshops and like hung around and learned a lot from Emerson. But like, so like I'm kind of like the Emerson student that didn't have to pay for it. But we all did go to Boston during that part of our life. So
what did you study music?
I studied audio engineering.
Do you think it's helpful to what you do now?
Definitely. I think at the time I just wanted to study something that I felt gave me some sort of practical skill and knowledge outside of, because if I'm honest, like I don't think it's worth it to go to music school to study writing and performance, because those are things you learn through life, not in a classroom necessarily. Like I think you can learn like good things about it in a classroom, but I don't think going to school and studying songwriting is going to make you a good songwriter. So I wanted to study something that, to me, would give me some sort of practical knowledge to what I was actually trying to do.
I studied television production. So, I think people thought I was going to go into school for music, and I don't know. I just love playing around with too much stuff. So I was like, there's audio involved with television, but there's also video and like screenwriting and all that stuff. And so I just kind of wanted to do it all. I've been kind of a jack of all trades.
Do you think you're gonna have a career in TV after you graduated?
I don't know. I used to make television commercials, like before, like that was the career I had before I left it to do this. So I don't know. We'll see. I think I'd only really want to do TV if it was with my best friends. I mean, that's the only reason why. That's the biggest reason why we do what we do now. Like we love hanging out with each other.
And what subjects did you take tests for? Like what majors? Like when you went to?
Oh man, I wrote some sound design papers for my buddies. We did some screenwriting exercises together. Did some TV production workshops right in like the Anson building and stuff. In the back of my mind, at some point, I wanted to be a history teacher before this happened. I love history very, very much. I think that teaching is super important. Education is super important for kids, so that's what I wanted to do. But before Arizona, just to maybe give you what you're looking for, like we like Dave and I knew each other for a long time before college. Nate met us in college, but we were, raised in the music industry as producers and songwriters, right? So we grew up producing. We, under I guess someone who sort of became like a mentor to us, and he showed us everything about this world, and we were just behind the scenes guys. So we made music for other people for a very, very, very long time, and that was my main career. Like I was like a producer, and I, stayed in Boston with these guys, and we had our own little production team, and we would work with people and do stuff. But for a very, very long time we did that, and at some point when we hit a weird low with all that, and we all started to have to face the idea of getting regular jobs outside of the arts, nothing crazy awesome to us, just things that we knew that we liked, but we would just go do. I think the most pivotal point for us, becoming a band or an artist project that we were doing was because as producers and people that worked in different, outlets within media in general, like, we had various disciplines and we had jobs, and I think that it was cool. We weren't totally outside of the realm of doing things we love, but it was just not totally it, and we hit a point where it became very day to day, and I know that we started hitting a point of struggle where we don't really we don't really support yourself. You're just kind of just getting by. So I think for us, we became very unhappy, and we stayed late one day in like the studio. Instead of producing a record for someone else, we made sort of a song by accident, and it was the first, I guess, what would become the first Arizona song, Let Me Touch Your Fire. And we enjoyed the process so much of just like hanging and being with our homies and making music, not for someone else or not for any particular reason, just for us, that we decided that we would do a couple more songs like that and then call it a day. No one's ever going to hear it, no one's ever going to care about it, but we'll do it, for us, for fun. And then the internet kind of happened, and literally out of nowhere, it kind of flipped over and people responded well to it. So we became an artist. We got flipped on the other side of the glass, and here we are now.
What would you tell your younger self when you guys all first started music?
Don't. Run away. Get out. Go while you still can. I don't know. It's a good question, actually.
I would tell my younger self that it's gonna be crazier and bigger than your wildest dreams. Like,
knowing what you know now.
Right? Knowing what I know now, it's
right.
like, I would tell my younger self, you have no idea what's in front of you, but just keep doing it.
How do you think you've grown as a group?
I think we've grown as people, right?
Yeah.
I think that like being who we are as a group is just one thing,
it's funny, like we were talking about this last night even with some of the guys, and afterwards, like, the stuff you go through on tour, you're on the road for like 2 weeks with the same people, and you're in the van, and like it really brings you together in a way you would never imagine you'd be brought together with
2
someone.
months.
Yeah.
2 months, yeah. Like, you just, you grow as people together because, like, you're either working with people that are there to do a job, or you're doing your jobs with your best friends. And I think for us, it's the latter, which is great. No one gets no one gets sick of each other because they're not new. We've been around each other for so long. It's like we know each other, and we know that what we're doing is to support one another, and we're having such a good time at the end of the day that all the hardships you go through, I think, force you to grow out of your comfort zone and do things and experience things that are totally different than what you'd ever expect you'd do. So, as people, you grow in a very interesting sense. Like most people do anyway throughout life. I think it's a weird alternate path. It's very interesting to grow this way as a person.
Last question: what do you want Arizona to be remembered for?
Probably bad jokes.
Yeah, that's a good one. Bad joke. Being corny dudes, I think being like guys that didn't take themselves too seriously. Guys that always had fun, and whenever you came to one of their shows or met them or whatever, that those guys were just regular people, and they made me feel like a normal person, and I had a good time always, and etc. Things like that. Like that when you hear those things, when people tell us like, oh, you guys are just dudes, and we're like, yeah, we're just dudes. Like, we're not these weird pretentious people that put everything we do on a pedestal and try to make a big deal of the fact that we're artists or this, that, the other thing. Like, we're just doing what we love, and I think that people translate it into their life the way they want. So just being corny, funny guys, or just like or just like hanging out. Yeah, I think that's what we want to be remembered for the most.
Yeah. Thank you.
For sure.